Welcome everybody, thank you for coming. This is our Halloween special tonight. And this is going to be part 2 of the history of the Jordan Fall Festival. We did part 1 in August. And the idea is that this is an audience participation event, so please feel free to just chime in with any comments or memories that you have of your own experiences at the Jordan Fall Festival. And we're going to be looking at a lot of early photos and some more recent photos taken at the festival and over the years. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. So first I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague Elaine Peters, the Jordan Village historian, and she's going to talk about some of her upcoming local history events.
So coming up, hi, I'm Elaine Peters, the village historian, and I have some talks also coming up in November. We kind of have a cooking theme coming on. So on Wednesday, November 12th, we're going to be talking about community cookbooks and the value they are for both historians as well as the community. Not only do you get lovely recipes, but you also get a little glimpse into the past. And so we'll be talking about that with our cookbook demonstration, with their cookbooks. And you got some recipes to take home as well. We're going to try, I'm going to make a recipe to, you get one of the recipes from it. If you have any kids in your life that you know, we're also on the cooking theme in November. We are going to be baking an apple dessert with the kids and talking about the history of apple orchards. We tend to think of apple orchards as something like you picked that's been around forever, but it's actually only been around for less than about 100 years. And our local orchards have a lot of good history in them, and also why do we even have orchards on a large scale? So we're going to be talking about with the kids, and they get to bake out of the deal, so you get to take a treat home. And then coming up, not here in the village of Jordan, but at Willard Chapel in Auburn on November 16th, I'll be giving a talk about stained glass. So if you are in the Auburn area and you can make it to Willard Chapel, it's an absolutely gorgeous place with stained glass by Louis Comfort Tiffany. Not only did he do all the stained glass windows, he did all the furnishings in Willard Chapel, as well as the chandeliers, which have been all slowly going out for renovation as well. So his touch and fingerprint is on everything in the chapel, and I'll be giving a talk about stained glass at Willard Chapel. That's Sunday, November 16th at 2 o'clock, so I hope you can join me there. And then it's about a month away now, but Saturday, November 29th, we're going to be having our village Christmas in Jordan, village Christmas tree lighting. We'll be having events all day. And I will be out roasting chestnuts over an open fire, making popcorn, and also there'll be salt potatoes as well. So that you come on out. We'll be talking about the history of street food. You get a free snack. You get to stay nice and toasty warm by the fire. It's a great time. I'm always located right behind the village Christmas tree, down below the Veterans Memorial Park. So I hope you will join us for that as well. And back to you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so many of you were here for part 1, and for those of you who were not, I'm just going to do a quick run through some of the early history of the Jordan Fall Festival. And this is a recent aerial photo taken in 2022 by our friend Bill Hecht, and with his drone. And so this shows us the layout of the festival today. We've got the more modern pavilion, which was not always there, and the white tents, some rides, the antique car show. But the question being, where and when and why did this all start in the first place? So the first Jordan Fall Festival was on October 18, 1947, and it was referred to as a Harvest Festival and Community Auction, and it took place This is the Four Corners in Jordan. This is Clinton and Mechanic Street. And the festival was right here along the creek next to what is today J&T Car Care. At that time it was Taylor's Super Service. And these are a few photos from that first fall festival. So this is looking southeast, the old Dilt's blacksmith shop on the opposite side of the creek. This is Mechanic Street over here. And then the community auction. This is the Taylor's used car building. Again, the blacksmith shop in the background. Some photos of the auction itself. You can see it's a lot of used furniture, appliances, housewares, and people in the community were asked to donate for the auction, and this was an annual tradition for many years. And yeah, just about everything you could need or want, you're going to find at the community auction at a good price. Okay, so as we talked about last time, the people in the community who were instrumental in the formation of the Jordan Fall Festival included Dr. Horace Whiteley, who was our local doctor who had a practice right in his home, which was where the Platten family later lived, next to the Masonic Temple. And the people who initiated the Fall Festival came together and formed the Jordan Community Council, and one of the main reasons was to raise money to build a swimming pool. And that was in part inspired by the death of a young girl, Elaine Turner, in 1947, who drowned in the old reservoir. So this is a picture of the members of the Jordan Community Council. Some of you will recognize people in this photo. There's Dr. Whiteley, Jessica Bramley, Bob Milton. I believe he's still alive, and probably the only person in this photo who's still alive. Francis Foote, the former mayor, Ken Bush Sr., Kip Manchester, who owned the Jordan Hotel for many years, and somebody else you recognize?
I think it isn't Royal Hendricks on the far right.
Yes. Yep. And Reverend Thurston from the Episcopal Church. So these guys were visionaries, and we're grateful to them. This photo was taken in May 1950, and it was through their hard work and volunteer service and their foresight and their vision that we have not only the Jordan Pool, but also the Jordan Fall Festival. Bud Scott, you might recognize here, he just passed away very recently. He also outlived most of the other people in this photograph. So this is just a couple of newspaper clippings that talk about the Jordan Pool, the original Jordan Memorial Pool that was completed in 1949. And this is some dates about this building, the Horace Whiteley Community Center, and this building was officially dedicated in 1971 in early May, and sadly Dr. Whiteley himself passed away later that month, and he was awarded a posthumous award for his service to the community. And this is some of you probably recognize this. This is what was here before this building: a service station and a garage, gas station, and of course this is what it looks like today. So this aerial photograph from 1942 shows the location of the former reservoir. So this is Brutus Road and Hamilton Road right here, and there was a reservoir right here, and that's where the tragic drowning occurred. And then now, in 1951, this aerial photo shows the new Jordan pool that has been built on that same spot. There was a question that came up last talk in August, was it built on the exact same spot as the reservoir? And I've since confirmed that yes, it indeed was. And there's a nice aerial shot of the original pool, which was quite significantly larger than the pool that's there today. And many of us remember swimming in this pool as children. I learned to swim there, and I also lifeguarded and taught swimming lessons there for many years. All these playground rides are not there anymore, but that's what I remember. How many other people in this room remember the old swings and the teeter-totters? Anybody? That's what we played on. And another nice early photo of the pool in the so-called deep end with the diving boards. A nice photo of, this is from 1972, and this is exactly what it looked like on a crowded day. These next three photos I did not have in the previous talk. These are from a 1971 article in the Syracuse Herald-American. And again, if you grew up in Jordan and if you learned to swim at the Jordan pool, these scenes will look familiar to you. I knew some of these women. This is Sandra Vaughn. I didn't know her. These are the women with the white caps are the swimming instructors. Now this is very familiar. Does this look familiar to anybody here besides me, this sign? They had these so-called stations for the Red Cross swimming lessons, and they were stuck, the wooden signs were stuck in a cinder block, and the goal was to advance your way through the stations as you learned the different skills. So station 3 was for back float. So first I was a student at station 3, and then many years later I was a teacher at station 3. And they used the same signs. And now some of these people you'll probably recognize. Katie Hinman, of course, and Wanda Bard, Marge Peters, Lillian Simpson, I don't know who that is, Ann Simmons, and Susan Cheney. They were the swimming instructors, and they have their little white caps, so they're just taking a break. And the famous pool patches, which was how the children who lived in the village had free admission to the swimming pool. Their parents would purchase the passes at the beginning of each summer season, and then these would be sewn or sometimes pinned with a safety pin to our bathing suits, and then we just walked through the turnstile. We didn't have to pay anything, which was a wonderful resource, and I'll always be grateful to Dr. Whiteley and the community council members who decided that Jordan needed a swimming pool so that the children could learn how to swim. And this is just a more recent aerial view of the swimming pool that's there today. This was built around 1981-ish, and it's, as you can see, smaller. The playground and the picnic area is all different. Oh, by the way, I think this is taken in March when the pool doesn't have any water in it, but maybe some water collected in the deep end and grew some algae. That's not the normal color of the pool itself. Okay, so I solicited some input from some of my former friends and neighbors who I grew up with on North Main Street in Jordan in the 1960s and 70s. Last talk, I shared some of my own memories of the Jordan Fall Festival, and these are memories that some of my friends who are not here tonight because they live out of town, but they shared some of their memories with me. And some of you know the Scanlon family. You remember the Scanlon family. So there was Dan, well, Jim Scanlon, he was the French teacher and the Spanish teacher at the high school, and then his 3 children, Dan, Celine, and Stephen. So Stephen had a lot of memories to share, including, we talked about this last time, the prize at the fish pond game at the festival was these colored, dyed Lucky Rabbit's feet keychains. Does that bring back memories for some of you? And so the idea was at the game is the children would put a pole with a string attached to it over a wooden stand, and then the volunteers, which included the Girl Scouts and brownies like myself, we would attach a prize to the end of the string, and then they would pull it up, and oftentimes it was one of these keychains. So these are just some of the memories. The Scanlon family first moved to Jordan in 1964, and they entered the cake raffle at that year's festival, and they won it, and that made them happy because they felt like they were being welcomed as newcomers to the community. And the cake was decorated with 25 Kennedy half dollars that were first minted in that same year, and Stephen still owns those half dollars from that cake. And so after that, Mrs. Scanlon, who loved to bake and loved to sew, she made a cake every year that she donated to the festival. And one year she made a 3-layer cake with peanut butter frosting, and by the time it arrived at the festival, it had tilted, and the family was not happy about that, but I'm sure it tasted good. But they still remembered the unfortunate tilting. The Lucky Rabbit's feet, and Stephen said he tried to collect as many of those as he could. He especially remembers the Briggs & Stratton steam power traction engine. That made a big impact on him. Not so much me being a girl, but that was made a huge impact on him. He was fascinated by that. He mentioned the canvas tents with the stakes and ropes that you would occasionally trip over, the library book tent, ham sandwiches, the school bus garage being converted into a bongo hall. Oh yeah, this was another memory that I shared. Going to bed at home, but still being able to hear the amplified announcer's voice in the distance. And the best donuts made by local baker Leonard Hart, who lived near us on North Main Street, and his wife was our kindergarten teacher, Gloria Hart. And when it rained and it got muddy, they would put down sawdust to absorb some of the water. And originally the weekend was the 4th weekend in September, but then it was changed to become the 3rd weekend in September. And another thing that made a big impression on Stephen was the demo of the Jordan Volunteer Fire Company's new Jaws of Life hydraulic rescue tool used to pry open cars that were in accidents. Tim, do they still have something like that?
Oh yeah, much improved.
Okay. So Stephen talked about how he witnessed this demonstration when this was first purchased, and that also left a big impression on him. And afterwards, they let the children use some kind of a sledgehammer or something to beat on the cars that were being demolished as part of the demo. Okay, so his sister Celine remembers the small, very salty potatoes, possibly made by Hep Arnold. I don't remember those. She remembers volunteering at the fishing game, and we were in brownies together. That would be the young Girl Scouts. She remembers the chicken barbecue, we all do, and the smoke drifting through the festival grounds, and watching the red balls in the bus garage at the bongo hall. And then the older brother, Dan, he remembers the yummy, greasy fry cake style of donuts and the ever-present, super rich apple cider. And of course, we know that's still a big draw in a beloved tradition today that has continued. And he also remembers sometimes the small red bongo balls would bounce outside of the plastic cubicles, and he would chase after them to bring them back to the game. The grand auction, which they don't have anymore, but that was a big part of the festival in the early years. Those of us who were around then remember the auction. And then he also mentioned the chicken and how he was amazed at all this chicken in large quantities, how they were able to arrange all the pieces on the grates that were flipped, and the timing was perfect to make sure that everything would cook thoroughly but not burn. And he was impressed by that. So much of the talk tonight is going to include photographs from the Buell collection. And again, that was the predominant content in the previous talk. This is Richard, or Dick Buell, who was an amateur photographer, and his wife Rita Buell. And some of you in this room, I'm sure, remember him. And Dick and his father-in-law, Rita's father, Walter Warren, were co-owners of the White Mill for many years. And so we are very grateful to Dick Buell and his wife, Dick for taking the photos, and both of them for labeling the backs of the photos and dating them. So we have a lot of information as a result about when the photos were taken and who are in the photos. So these are some of his photographs from the festival. So this is 1968, and we're picking up exactly where we left off at the end of the last talk. The last talk we started in the early 50s, and we got up to as far as 1968, and so now we're starting with 1968. Now, I don't know what this is. Does anybody else? Some kind of steam-powered device. You can see the wire mill in the background, and they typically, the farmers and the old-timers would have these various steam-powered devices on display each year at the festival, and they would make a lot of noise, and they were captivating to young children, but I myself don't know anything about them. Here's some more. This is the photo I used for the flyer for the first talk, and this was Ken McCormick's train, and I do remember riding in that. Does anybody else here remember riding in it? That was always fun. Who's this? I don't know. I'm not sure. This is Lyman McIntyre and Tom Bard. He was a year older than me, and they're at the chicken barbecue. I'm just not sure who that is.
Pete Scott, maybe? Is that Pete Scott?
Ah, okay. That sounds like very plausible. Would he be the one that lived on Brutus Road that had a large family of children? Okay. That would make sense. He kind of does look like a Scot. Okay.
Max toilet brush. It's in the bucket.
Okay.
That's where you spread the stuff on.
Ah, that's what they used to spread the barbecue sauce on, a toilet brush? Okay. Okay, that's an interesting piece of trivia. Thanks for sharing that with us, Pete. This photo was not labeled. Anybody recognize any of these guys? Looks like one of the food booths, maybe. 1971. Ah, here we go. These are some people that we remember. This would have been the Jordan Historical Society table in the bus garage, and they actually formed in 1971. That's the year that they first incorporated. And this is longtime Jordan historian Kate Hudson, and Stubb and Dorothy Tanaik. And again, we are, in us current day local historians are indebted to these guys for all that they did to document and record and preserve Jordan history. This one, you can just take a look at this article if you wish. There are many, many names here that are familiar to us. The Drummonds, Greg Drummond, the Schnickelfritz Band, which played every year at the festival, Francis and Lola Foote, the former mayor and his wife, Mrs. Bramley, Hilda Clements, I do remember her, and again, just lots of familiar names. I'm not trying to say all of them. Louis Barbaglia, Joseph McMullen, Joe Schill. Oh yeah, portraits. Albert Arnold. He always did like I believe he used pastels, and he would do portraits, and we would go and watch him while he was drawing somebody's portrait. He was the local artist and architect, also very active with the early Jordan Historical Society. And so anyways, this was from 1972. People who were volunteers at the Jordan Fall Festival that year and the different tasks that they volunteered for. 1973, so again, this is very familiar to me. Here you see the tent stakes and the ropes holding up the tents that Stephen Scanlon had mentioned. These are the old tents, and there's these wooden signs that were along to identify each of the different booths, this one being the restaurant booth for the 4 churches. And I have some transcriptions here of some of the other signs. You can't read them very well in this image, but when I look at it on my computer, I could see the signs read calf raffle, old country store, homemade candy, cotton candy, clam chowder, and the restaurant. I do remember they did sell rock candy. Do you guys remember that? So that might be what the homemade candy referred to. And I would always get myself a string of rock candy. And that was something to look forward to every year. I believe this is Laura Holden with the crutches, for those of you who remember her. And this kind of looks like Mrs. Wheeler, the math teacher. What do you guys think? Did anyone know her husband, and would that possibly be her husband? Ah, the book tent. That's still an ongoing tradition, but as a young child, I was fascinated by all the books that were available to browse through and to purchase, or to ask my mother to purchase for me. And that was kind of magical, and I'm glad to know they still are continuing this tradition. It's a great place to get gently used books. Oopsie daisy. Here we go. Okay. Again, people in this photograph that we remember, many of us, Stubb Tanaik, who we saw a few minutes ago, and Jim and Esther Bateman at the Masonic Lodge booth. Looks like maybe selling chowder, clam chowder maybe, some kind of soup. Oh, and this is Rita Buell, the wife of Dick Buell, and she would frequently volunteer at the pie booth, another one of my personal favorites. You see the pie in the foreground and some coffee cups. Ellis Robillard, how many people remember him? When Elaine did her dig at the Pump Schoolhouse earlier this year, we had photographs. So this is the one on Clinton Road, the little red brick former one-room schoolhouse for the Pump District, or the Pump Hill or Pump Road District, or Cold Spring Pump as the hamlet was once called. And I had 2 photographs that we shared that day at Elaine's event that showed the children. It was early photographs of the children standing in front of their one-room schoolhouse, which today is a private residence. And there were adorable pictures of Ellis Robillard and his sister. And so this when he was a little boy, and now he's not a little boy, but he had the same smile in those early photos, so it's kind of interesting. He always had a smile on his face. Ken Pickard and Harvey Hudson. So Harvey was the wife of Kate Hudson, the historian. And the horse show, which is no longer part of the fall festival, but for many years it was. And I remember that because our family owned a horse, and my sister and brother and other sister would often compete during the Jordan Fall Festival. And it was a big attraction. They brought in a lot of people. And again, that's part of the outgrowth of the original festival being an agricultural and annual harvest festival for an agricultural farming community. So this is kind of the transition from the early festival, which had that as a focus, to the more recent festivals that are more vendor oriented in antique cars, and the horses went away. Another nice photo from 1973 of the horse show. Does anybody recognize any of the people in that photo? I personally don't recognize any of them, but this looks like the English as opposed to the Western English competition. And another picture of the different booths from 1976. So some of the signs say registration booth, register here for free hourly prizes. That's this sign. Ham on Rye, candied apples, cotton candy, and the garden shop. And these signs say donuts, coffee, cider, Old Country Store, and calf raffle. And that's another thing they used to do every year, is raffle off a domestic farm animal. I don't think they do that anymore, do they? Okay. Another typical fall festival photo from the 1970s with a nice big crowd, and some of the signs that are readable in this photo: chicken barbecue, candied apples, cotton candy, donuts, coffee and cider, and the Old Country Store. And a photo of the chicken barbecue. This tank here says McNabb Gas, Jordan, New York. And it says the chicken barbecue is being run by the council. I assume that's the community council. Another typical festival photo with people enjoying their meals at the picnic tables. And under the tent, okay, I know this guy. He's from Elbridge. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was in high school with me. The book Sale 10 again. Does anybody know who this woman is? She looks familiar, but I don't think she's one of the Scullion sisters, would she?
I was wondering if that's who she.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks like she might be.
Okay. She might be. She looks kind of familiar. Ah, how many people remember this? The bongo game in the bus garage, run by the volunteer fire company. Pete, do you remember this? Okay. So, this would be one of the Milton boys. He's calling out when it's time for people to throw their red rubber ball into the little cubicles. If you haven't seen it at the Jordan Fall Festival, you may have seen a similar game at the State Fair, but they don't call it bongo at the State Fair. They call it,
Jones is our guy.
oh yeah, I got it. And so people would sit here for hours and hours sometimes, because if you won, then you would get a ticket. And if you won again, you would get a different ticket that qualified you for a better prize, starting with the ones on the lower shelf. And if you won enough games, you could work your way up to the prizes on the top shelf. Those were the ones that were most desirable. And so that's what a lot of people did, is they would, I'm laughing because there's a visitor right here. Okay, well, such is the attraction of bongo. And so that's what they did. And the announcer's voice would be amplified, and you could hear it all through the festival. It was kind of part of the ambiance of the festival. This is Ken Peters here, I believe, if any of you remember him, Marge Peters' son. They lived on Clinton Street. Okay, and another photo of the bongo, again, David Milton. Is he still around? Does he still
Yes,
live in
yeah.
Jordan? Okay.
And up on Rose Street, yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen him in years. I probably wouldn't recognize him. John Pinkney, Ernie Ray, and they have one of their ambulances parked in the background here. And again, this is at the bongo game. 1976 horse show with the jumps. They also had contests, and this is what my siblings like to do. They like to enter our horse in the, not where the riders were judged on their poise and their outfits, but where speed was the key. And those contests were like things like racing around barrels, who could do that the fastest. And so that was one of the things that our horse was good at, was speed. And sometimes my sister's friends would say, "Can I borrow your horse to be in this event?" Because they knew that would be a good way to win. Another photo of the horse show with the horse trailers in the background. Now this would always be, for those of you who don't remember the horse show, that would always be on the north side of the festival grounds, where today is basically a parking lot. And they didn't have a lot of amusement rides in the early days of the festival. We've seen the kiddie swings, the pony rides, but as time passed, they started bringing in more of the typical amusement park rides, such as a merry-go-round, a small Ferris wheel, and some kind of a, I forget what these called. Bounce house, yeah. Bounce.
He's enjoying the show.
Okay. And the antique cars. Now, originally, it was just a few of the locals who brought their antique cars. Last time we saw Gary Rink with his Franklin and Keith Bush. They were a couple of the folks who would show their antique cars. But then later, and we're going to see that in a minute, they actually expanded to have an antique car show, which is still a big part of the festival today. That started around 1987, 1988. So this photo, which was taken in 81, was before they started the big car show. And that big car show, along with the vendors and the arts and crafts tents, do draw in quite a significant number of people from out of town. It's become a local tradition. It does generate an enormous amount of revenue for the community, thanks to all the out-of-towners who come. But us old-timers remember that when it was more of just a community, local thing, where we would go to the festival each year and we would recognize and knew just about everybody that we saw there. If I go to the festival today, sometimes I can go and not even recognize a single person. Some more antique cars. This is right next to the bus garage where you may remember they had the archery set up that was run by the Boy Scouts, but apparently not that year. Okay, this looks like one of those competitions where you wanted a fast horse. 1981 with the wire mill in the background. Do any of you remember John Knobloch? He's no longer living. He died young, but he was from the Knobloch family here in Jordan, and he liked to dress up as a Civil War reenactor. So this is a photo of him at the festival in 1982 in his uniform. One of the windows at the Episcopal Church is dedicated to him and his mother, I believe. His mother being Ruth? I forgot. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, 1983, again, a shift from horses and domestic farm animals and produce and harvest festival to the modern day new focus on automobiles and craft vendors. Okay, so this 1983, I think this doesn't look like the new pavilion. This looks like a tent, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But eventually, we'll see in some upcoming photos, they did build the permanent pavilion, which is there today, which has like the food court and the different food vendors. Okay, so that's the end of the Dick Buell photos that were related to the festival. And now I'm going to share some additional photos that are a little bit more recent and in color. And these were just photos that were shared with me from different sources. This is 1976 newspaper clipping, and you see Stephen Rink, who was here for the part 1, but he's not here tonight, and Gary Simmons. They were both classmates of mine in high school. Stephen Rink lived in the Tanner house on Hill Street, and his mother still lives there today. The beautiful brick gingerbread style house. And a young girl eating a candy apple. I ate many a candy apple at the festival over the years. They were sold by the Parkman family. For those of you who know Jason Parkman, who is currently the Town of Elbridge municipal historian. So his parents and their siblings and their parents had the candy apple booth. The famous chicken barbecue. And in the background, you can see people lined up, leaning against a wooden fence, watching the horse show. So this is looking kind of northwest. And you can see a horse here. Now, I'm told by the person who shared this photograph with me that this t-shirt that says number 16, that might be Dick Platten. And the reason I say that is because there was a time where some of the families that lived on North Main Street got matching t-shirts, like the North Main Street gang, so to speak. And this was the adults, not the children. And on the back of each t-shirt was their house number. And I do know that 16 is the number for the Platten House, so I'm guessing that might be Dick Platten, our former mayor for many decades here in Jordan, and my math teacher in high school. And doesn't that look kind of mouth-watering in color? You can see the smoke wafting off here, and you can almost smell it looking at this photo. Today I'm a vegan, so I guess it's a different, it's a different experience. But back then I definitely loved the chicken barbecue and would look forward to it every year. Okay, so this is Stephen Scanlon, 1987, and he and his family lived at 33 North Main Street in the brick house, like a little bit north of Delhi Street. And his father, as I mentioned before, was the French and Spanish teacher at the high school. And it looks like there's the beginnings of a car show. I don't know if it officially started until 1988, but this photo was taken in 1987. You see the Ferris wheel in the background. Some dragons.
Dizzy dragons.
What are they called?
The dizzy dragons, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And this is a more recent color photo from 2010. You can see now there's more of the modern day rides that we're familiar with. Something like a tilt-a-whirl, Ferris wheel, the Dizzy Dragons. This is the photo that I used for the flyer to publicize tonight's event. And so now you see that we're inside the food pavilion that's there today. So that will look familiar to people. Hot dogs, hamburgers, sausage. I think this says salt potatoes and baked potatoes. And a 2010 photo of the car show. And another photo of the car show. So, also, when people go to the Jordan Fall Festival, they often visit the restored Lock 51 Lock Tender's house. So I decided to include a few photographs related to the history of that historic structure. For many years, people in Jordan believed that this was the only remaining original Erie Canal Lock Tender's house in existence. And I set out to find out the answer to that question a few years ago, and I learned that it's not the only remaining one. There is one other, but this one here in Jordan is the only one that's restored. The other one was formerly located at Loch Berlin, west of us, over near Lyons in Wayne County. And that one had almost been destroyed in a controlled burn. And I got to those people, I contacted them just in time, and the controlled burn was canceled, and the folks from the Canal Society of New York State rescued the structure and moved it to the Port Byron Lock 52 and are in the process of restoring it. So, this is our Lock 51 Lock Tender's house that was moved from the location where it originally stood on the island west of Jordan, that way, in the island between the two lock chambers. And it was moved on September 25th, 1985 with a crane. And originally it was moved behind the town hall. And so this is a photograph taken of it just after it was moved. You can see it's propped up on some cinder blocks. it doesn't look anything like the Lock Tender's house that we're familiar with today that are at the festival grounds, because this is before it was restored, and you can see it's in pretty sad condition, but at least it was preserved. And so it sat here for about 3 years. And the reason being, they had to actually go through the local historical society, the Jordan Historical Society had to go through paperwork with New York State, who owned the structure, so that it could be officially and legally de-accessioned to the local historical society. And so then in 1988, they were able to move it to the festival grounds where it is today and begin the restoration. So you can see that this photo taken in spring 1988, they have already begun the restoration. That looks really skinny, doesn't it? It looks too skinny, like as though half of it's missing. But you can see they put on a new roof. They built a supporting structure down here at the bottom. They replaced the siding, replaced the doors and windows. And in the same photo, you can see the pavilion under construction in spring 1988. And that's Stephen Scanlon and his wife Donna. He's carrying a box kite. So, do any of you remember Vaughn Holden? He did the restoration. He was a local contractor. He did the restoration work on the Lock Tender's house. And Hep Arnold, the architect, was also a key person in that project. And so then this is a photograph from September 21st, 2019. And this is our dear friend, the late Jack Horner, who was the Jordan village historian and town of Elbridge municipal historian for many years. And we miss him, we all miss him dearly. He was a wonderful man, very knowledgeable about history of the area, and very eager to share his knowledge. So Susan Young, the former president of the Jordan Historical Society, longtime president for many years, had asked me if I would do the research to have an historic marker erected in front of the Lock Tender's house, which I did. And then the William G. Pomeroy Foundation approved the grant application, and they funded the historic marker. And so this was our dedication ceremony. You can see the marker here that's wrapped up because it hasn't been officially unveiled yet. And Jack Horner, this is David Beebe from the Camillus Erie Canal Park.
Next dead.
Yep, it's John Nevin Sr., who's here with us tonight, and Jeanette Horner, Jack Horner's wife, and this is the representative who came to our event from the Pomeroy Foundation. And the beautifully restored Lock Tender's house in the background. Ah, there we are. So now this is the same day after the new historic marker has been officially unveiled, and you'll recognize many of these people. There's John Nevin Sr., longtime volunteer with the Jordan Historical Society for many, 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 many years. Very dedicated, active volunteer. And Susan Young, the former president of the Jordan Historical Society. Again, she was active with the Historical Society and served on the board for many years. And I was a volunteer with that organization at that time, and for many years. And then Jack Horner, again, and our own Gary Klink, who's here with us tonight, who is still serving on, he's been an active volunteer with the Jordan Historical Society for like 25 years, and is still serving on the board of the Jordan Historical Society, and is also a volunteer pilot at the Erie Canal Park in Camillus. That's me. And there's David Beebe again from Camillus and the guy from the Pomeroy Foundation. And the sign says Lock Tender's House, served Erie Canal, Lock 51, located west of Jordan. Lock active circa 1858 to 1917. This rare Erie Canal building moved here 1988 and restored. William G. Pomeroy Foundation, 2019.
For those who don't know what a lock tender's house is, real quick, the lock tender's house wasn't a place where they actually lived. It was just an office that they could get out of the rain and do their paperwork or whatever while waiting for boats to come through. It wasn't a residence, which is a misconception, misnomer in the name. We often refer to them in the vernacular as lock tender houses all across the Erie Canal, but this building was designed to be an office. It was not a one-room thing like Bob Pa Ingalls thing. This is just an office that sat on the top of the lock.
Thank you for that clarification, Elaine. Although, as we know, part of the story of our own Lock Tender's House is that after the Erie Canal closed, coming through the village of Jordan and moved to the north to the Barge Canal, and the water was drained from the canal, the old Lock Tender's House at Lock 51 was moved north of the lock into the woods, and there was a hermit who lived inside the building for many years, and his name was Louis Gerard, sometimes known as Louis Cabouche. John remembers him, and he had worked on the railroads at one time, and so that's really why, that's the main reason why this structure still exists, because he, by living there, preserved it, and whereas other...
I'm just saying, when he died, everybody's kind of like got to thinking, didn't he like live in the old lock tender's house? Huh. So then after he passed away, they went up into the woods to look, and sure enough, you could see in the old paint worn away, because he was a hermit. He didn't care what the outside of his house looked like. He never painted it, and you can see the old worn paint that said Lock 51 on the side still. So we knew that we have the authentic one, and what makes us special is that we actually have the only restored lock tender, and it's really in its original location as close to as possible. It's not at the lock, but it's close to original. Like the one from Lock Berlin will be going to Port Byron. Port Byron doesn't still have its own thing, and the one that you see at the Canal Park in Camillus today, that's a restoration based upon ours. These structures, once the canal closed, nobody wanted them, and they were sold off, taken away, whatever, turned into garages, burned for firewood. Nobody wanted them anymore. So ours actually, the reason we have it today was because some hermit went, that's just about the right size for me. And somehow got somebody to help him drag it off the center thing, drop it down, and drag it up into the woods, and lived in it for about 50 years.
Yeah, how it got from the island in the middle of the two lock chambers onto the other, across a big gap into the woods on the north side of the lock, that's still a mystery. We don't know how that was moved, but here again is David Beebe from the Camillus Erie Canal Park, and he measured our lock tender's house and built the replica that's at Camillus today to the exact specifications of ours. And then again, our dear friend John Nevin Sr. And this, again, we miss Jack Horner immensely, but this is a wonderful photo of him with his ever-present warm smile standing next to the newly dedicated.
One of his last projects too, because he passed away in 2020.
Yep.
2020.
Yep. So we'll always be grateful to him for all that he did. Okay, Stephen, do you want to turn on the lights, please? Thank you. So I just want to once again acknowledge I'm here at the front of the room presenting, but this each of these monthly events is the result of a group of individuals, volunteers who collaborate together to host the events. And so I want to again acknowledge my colleague Elaine Peters, who helps with amplification, among other things, and contributing her vast knowledge of local history, as she's done tonight, and enhancing the presentation. So thank you, Elaine. And thank you to Mike, who helps with the setup and often helps with research. Thank you to Stephen Napoli and Sally Howell, who have produced a wonderful refreshments table and spread for us to enjoy tonight. So please stay and help yourself to refreshments. It's a surprise. You're gonna love it. And I would also like to thank Bill Hecht, who has been videotaping our events and also has retouched many of the early photos of Jordan over the years, and we are so grateful to Bill for all that he does as a volunteer, tirelessly and very generously. And thank you to all of our supporters for the Friends of the Jordan Historical Society. Again, my name is Lynn Fa, and this is our website, and these talks are on the last Tuesday of every month, and next month's the topic is going to be holiday greetings and Jordan winters of yesteryear. So we hope you can join us for that, and I want to thank all of you for coming this evening.